Good evening. We are here once again. Do a little music and just make sure I got everything, getting everything all set and ready to go here. We have got 12 releases this fine Thursday evening. I just gotta get my notes open, which requires me getting Telegram open, which requires me making sure that the VPN works normally. Anyway, 12 releases, and it's not too much else to say. It's kind of I think last week there was quite a bit of what you might call rock, definitely some metal there at the end. This week is it's pretty much just all electronic music and indie. Actually, quite a bit of like kind of folk indie too as well, something along those lines as well. But we'll get to that in due time. I'm just getting everything open here. We actually have 2 Bandcamp releases as well too, which is something that we don't get very often, or that I just don't get around to very often. But I got them here. I got them now. Let me make sure I got all my settings put together, and yeah. Okay. So without any further ado, okay. Now my headphones are working too. I already checked that. All right. So yeah, up first we've got. We're actually going to open with the Bandcamp releases. I feel like that's probably just the best way of doing it. Not necessarily because I think that they're just a little bit different in their own way. The first one, though, I want to talk about because it is 16 is the name of the album, and it is by the group День Космонавтики. Now, for those of you who are, I don't know, out of the loop a little bit, Cosmonautics Day was on Sunday. When I did the news on Sunday, I had my little Gagarin shirt on. I talked about space. And День Космонавтики, once a year, this is a group of guys out of St. Petersburg. Once a year, they get together in the early spring, sometime in March typically, and compose, improvise, experiment, and then they come up with recording that they dedicate and they release specifically on the 12th of April, Cosmonautics Day. The mood and the atmosphere of the releases change from year to year. But I would say, by and large, there's always this kind of spacey, introspective aspect to the sound. I'll put the album artwork now as I talk about this concept. But yeah, musically, it does feel like there is something of an attempt or desire to recreate the effect of floating through space, or maybe what Gagarin himself would have been feeling as he looked back down, or I don't know, as he rocketed through the heavens for the first time. So yeah, the tracks and the ideas have extended beyond that. You can kind of see that a little bit in the track titles. I mean, some of these you can see: Empty Simplicity, Harmonic Window, Amber Memory. Are they directly connected to the cosmos and space? I mean, like, you could draw a line to it. Obviously, though, some of these are a little bit, my grandmother was a space worker too. All these stars will one day go out. But yeah, they've been doing this for 16 years now. Soundtracks for every 12th of April since 2010. This is actually something I discovered back in 2024, if I remember correctly. And I wanted to talk about it last year, but I just completely forgot about it until it was well after the holiday. So we are technically after the holiday at this point in time, but I think we're still within the realm of what is acceptable to talk about. So yeah, wonderful concept for what I think to be a wonderful holiday. I'll just play a little bit here so you get the idea of what this is like. So yeah, very spacey, very ambient, but I don't want you to have the impression that it's all like this. You can kind of see too from the description, right? We got electric guitar, effects processor, non-input mixer, mixing photo, or obviously that's the photo, saxophone, synth, effects, pedals, recording. So it's just by and large two guys who do most of the noodling around. Definitely not for everyone. It's maybe not necessarily something that I would actively choose to listen to on. There are rhythms and melodies, so I do need to jump ahead. This is not something that necessarily would actively listen to at other points during the year, but I love this idea of specifically for Cosmonautics Day. And I think if you listen to it within that context, it works very, very well. And I haven't listened to all 16 albums, I'll be completely honest, but I think if you were to go back and give a listen to some of the other ones, I'm sure that it would also create that same atmosphere, that same mood. So, sorry if I'm slightly distracted, I'm playing around with the VPN down here. There's a lot of ambience, but that's okay, because again, too, when you're focused on outer space, you would expect there to be a lot of space in the sound, so yeah. Just, again, this is kind of an oddball one out here. It's one of those albums where it's not so much of a recommendation per se, but I do want to highlight this concept. I think it's a really cool idea. I wish more people would do it with specific holidays, but at the same time, like, what other holidays are there aside from the ones that already have a bunch of songs connected to them where you could do something unique and interesting like that, right? Cosmonauts Day does lend itself to annual experimental ambient albums, and I think that's kind of cool. And the fact that it's been going on for 16 years is just, salute to that. So if you're looking for something a little bit, well, more like this, then give it a shot. They're definitely, I don't remember, I think it's the My Grandmother Was a Space Worker track too, has quite a bit more of the saxophone present, which does mix things up a little bit, but anyway, that's enough of that. I do like the album artwork too. I do think it's good. It's like a nice mix of elements. I think both. Anyway, moving on to the other Bandcamp release. This is an artist I featured last year, NDORFIK, and this is his Northern Cash EP. IDM, it's IDM music, but this release is a little bit different from the last time. The last release, it was all focused on kind of natural elements. There was like a crane on the cover. I think birds were one of the central ideas or elements to that album. This one right here, Northern Cash, doesn't really do that. It's IDM that leans into the glitchy, erratic style of some of the forerunners of the genre, like Aphex Twin, Square Pusher, or Autekre. Yeah, there we go. It's pretty cold, pretty calculated, but also chaotic at the same time. I feel like this track is, I listened to it a few times and there you go. There we go. A little bit of that glitch element in there. little bit. Yeah, again, if I feel like Square Pusher is what this reminds me of more than anything, but again, like I said, there's probably, I mean, all of those groups I mentioned, I listened to all of them, but I was never like a huge fan of them, so it's kind of hard for me to say, but Square Pusher is the artist that does jump to mind, I think, most when listening to this. I have to say, NDORFIK's previous release, I did prefer, but I don't know if this is just a one-off. He, as far as I know, is not signed to Clean Error Records here, which is based out of Atlanta, even though he is still here in Russia. So maybe this is just a bit of a one-off, but it's kind of this really glitchy, very, I don't know, yeah, like I had cold, calculated, chaotic. You got the alliteration, but I do think it works to describe what you're hearing. It's not an easy EP to listen to. You kind of have to be focused on it. Like if you just put this on and you're not really paying attention, it is just going to sound like a bunch of noise because it's very balanced on that edge of falling into chaos. But if you got the time and the patience or the desire to sit down and actually give it its due, it's kind of an interesting listen. A little bit different, and like I said, I've talked about NDORFIK last year, so when I saw him pop up, or that he had a new release, I wanted to give it a shot, and it's like I said, even though it's not, I prefer his release from last year, which I cannot recall the name of right now, but it is out there. It's got the crane flying on it. I remember that much. Even though I do prefer that one more, I do see the value of this release, and I don't know, maybe he's moving in a new direction. Maybe this is just like a one-off kind of experimental little thing. But regardless, this is the EP Northern Cache from NDORFIK. All right, now we move into Spotify. Now we're back to Spotify, and we have a compilation album, oddly enough. This is VRN.PROD, Volume 1, Voronezh. Produced in Voronezh, basically, I guess is how you want to think of it like that. 16 tracks here, which highlight the many aspects of the electronic scene in Voronezh, which is not something that I would ever have thought I was going to talk about, but here we are. As with any compilation, obviously there are going to be some tracks that just don't stick with you. Like, for example, the dubstep sort of thing going on in the Replicants track, I was just not feeling. It's just a personal taste issue because there are a wide variety of electronic styles here. But there is a lot of the IDM and the UK garage sound across this, which are done well. And I always do enjoy them when they're done well. There's a few kind of tracks as well that might be considered like the energy, club banger type energy. And then there's some things that calm it down a little bit. You got some house tracks on here. Where's my volume knob? Okay, yeah. For some reason that is way louder than Bandcamp was. There are a lot of electronic compilation albums that come out. I would say there's probably 2 or 3 of them every single month is what it feels like. And a lot of times, I don't listen to every single one, I'll be completely honest. And a lot of the times, it is a situation where personally, maybe 20-25% of the album I find enjoyable. Because again, it's a compilation. It's supposed to highlight a bunch of different artists, a bunch of different styles. But for whatever reason, on this one in particular, again, maybe it's just the makeup of it, or maybe there's something specific going on in Voronezh that I don't fully understand. But I was feeling this a little bit more. Yeah, there were tracks that weren't exactly my genre or my preferred style, but honestly, even the ones like I said, the Replicants, track 6 right there, didn't really do it for me. But maybe I just wasn't in the dubstep mood too. Like, it was done well, I just wasn't necessarily feeling it. But yeah, I don't know. I always applaud things like this, and growing up in the era of compilation albums, especially with metal artists, where they would try to establish a name for themselves, street crews and stuff like that. I do appreciate the fact that these types of compilations are still getting put out on streaming services, because you would think that on streaming services you don't really need that anymore. You just take the algorithm's recommendations. But the fact that people are still out here. Let me put up another one here real fast too. The fact that old style of promoting different artists and sounds is still being actively used online, I do think that's great, and I think it is. It's like a fun way of discovering new music. I think it's more interesting, obviously, than letting the algorithm decide what it's going to find for you, because it's the same way of walking into a bookstore, right? You can get book recommendations, but sometimes you find something that you wouldn't normally expect to be fed in the algorithm, for example, but it clicks with you for whatever reason. So yeah, right. Kind of 4 different tracks, 4 different styles there. Obviously, there's stuff that's much faster, some acid. I mentioned house earlier. It's all over the place. So, just a nice sampling of what's happening in one sub-region of the Russian electronic scene, in the Voronezh scene. Although it is interesting because I did realize that Brabel is an artist I talked about last year. I think he released an EP. And Ox Racer is an artist who, I'm not going to talk about him. I didn't really enjoy that specific type of electronic music, but he did release an album not long ago. So some of these names I have encountered before, but most of them not. So anyway, if you're looking, I don't know, to just sample a little bit of what's going on electronically in Voronezh, then this is a pretty good place to start. Or I guess you could just use it as a Russian electronic music sampler too, because that fits the bill. So yeah, it's various artists, and it's VRN.PROD. I don't know, yeah, Voronezh produced in Voronezh, Volume 1. Yeah. Okay. So we got all that stuff out of the way. We're on to more traditional albums, right? More traditional music. But I did kind of want to talk about that. We started with a lot of kind of electronic music, and we will see electronic music pop up once more. But yeah, from here on out, we're looking a little bit more at indie for the most part, and sort of folk, indie folk as well. So this EP here is Gораздо, and the group is Другое Дело. Sorry. I actually first heard this group in 2024, and I really liked their album back then. I made a note to myself. I said it was wild beasts plus Dutch uncles with everything. Those are 3 groups. If you're not familiar with them, you could also check those out too. Wild Beasts, Dutch Uncles, Everything, and kind of avant indie pop elements smashed in that as well. That was the 2024 release. That's not quite the same formula this time, although I would say that there is a bit of the Wild Beasts and Dutch Uncles at least in like kind of the backing synths and the vocals from time to time. But it's a nice collection of kind of just indie rock tracks, and it's out of VRN-ish, so it's kind of, we're gonna use this as a bit of a transition. But let's just give this a listen here. I'm gonna jump ahead just a little bit. I honestly, I mean, I will be fair. I'll be honest. I didn't fully listen to the lyrics all that much, but I still have no idea what the hell. Яблоки не горят means apples don't burn. Anyway, yeah, it's a nice little EP of that style of indie rock, kind of. I don't know how you would describe those vocals. Very not dramatic, like maybe dramatic. I don't know. There's a lot of inflection in them, and it's just instrumentally, it's kind of all not in the back, but it's just a nice balance. The backing sense, there's a lot of atmosphere there as well too. So just a pleasant listen. And I think oftentimes, kind of like with NDORFIK, there are releases by artists where I'm not like totally blown away by them, but I do want to talk about them because I've either talked about the artist on the stream before, and I kind of want to like bring it up and highlight perhaps the change in the sound. Or in this case, I didn't actually talk about Другое Дело back in 2024 because I wasn't doing the streams. And so having a chance to bring them to people's attention now. Yeah, Zolotia Slava. This was the album from 2024, which was like really, really good. I really liked it. It was one of those albums where I was like, I could maybe understand if some people were saying that was like their album of the year type situation. I thought it had a lot of good sound and energy to it. But so yeah, this isn't like on that level. This isn't perfect by any means, but it is a nice, pleasant EP, and is from a group that I do think it feels like they're not super well known even here in Russia, which I guess it's not like a huge surprise either. But yeah, that is the EP Gораздо from the group Другое Дело. Okay, switching up styles now. We are on the EP Spokojno from the group, or from the artist Rейчи. Rейчi, I guess, is Rейчi. That's kind of, yeah. Cup size. I've talked about cup size twice. I talked about cup size in the autumn last year, and then at the beginning of this year when I was talking about albums that I had missed. Cup size is kind of that, like, the rising star in that boisterous garage rock pop punk sound that seems to be quietly growing into a bit of a musical wave here in Russia. If cup size is the rising star there, Rейчи here is, I don't know, doing the same thing. This is the artist's second EP. He also has a full length, but yeah, I don't know. It's a specific sound. Either you like it or you don't. Either you're feeling it or you aren't. It's pretty clear right away. I enjoy it. I do understand why people like cup size. What did I said? Boisterous garage rock, pop punk, but there's also like a slacker nature just in the vocals. Like not enunciating anything at all. This is the general sound for most of the tracks. But it does slow down a little bit on the final track. So, very simple, very straightforward sound, but also, I don't know, there's something infectious about it, something catchy and I don't know, something very teenage about the sound, but that's okay. Like, it's not an insult in any way whatsoever. So that is the EP Spokojno. The artist is Rejci. Rejci right here. Yeah, got a lot of fun teenage energy. I guess I'll just leave it at that. I'm not really going to try to explain it any bit more. Just like that's what it is. Moving on though, we are the EP 7, the group PALC. They actually have it written in Russian, which is very convenient because for so long I had no idea PALC. I had no idea, but the PALC is I still don't understand what the hell that's supposed to mean, but that is what it is. Female-fronted indie pop, quite heavy on funky rhythms, got some punchy guitars and synths in there, a lot of upbeat tempos, even though the individual mood of the tracks might not be the happiest or the friendliest. It still is quite upbeat and dynamic. And just the fact that the sound and the arrangement and the mood from track to track varies, it does make this 7-track EP, and I believe it is the group's 7th EP, so 7 is a very appropriate one here, the 7th EP with 7 songs. Makes this a bit of a dynamic listen for that. I'm also pretty sure that this group used to do remixes of various songs. I feel like I remember that. I'm positive that used to be the case. I'm almost certain this is not some weird hallucination I'm having. But yeah, if I'm remembering correctly too, the remixes that they used to do would have kind of like a blog house sound. I don't like that the music blog scene with all the remixes from like the early 2010s, if you know type of thing. But yeah, I'm just gonna hit this up and So we had that, and now, I mean, granted, this is a few tracks later, but this is very post-punk. Quite different in terms of overall sound. Very catchy EP. A lot of really good songs on it. Even though stylistically it does jump around. But that's kind of what makes it such a fun listen. And like on tracks like this, you can kind of hear something when I say like that 2010s type of sound, like that I don't know, like indie pop, indie rock, the early days of the music internet, if you will. Anyway, really fun, really good little EP there. That is 7 by PALC. And nice album artwork too. I'm assuming that these are all references to things in various songs, but I didn't pick it out. It's just cool. Okay, now, it says this is a single. I'm taking this as an EP. That's what we're going with. This is the artist Большой Добрый Пёс, Big Friendly Dog, and the EP is Я пёс, I'm a dog. A lot of dog themes. We got a big old dog on the album artwork there. I saw this described as indie folk meets Midwest emo, which is pretty on the nose. To me, it felt like not for the last time this evening. Sorry, it felt a little bit like Iron and Wine, but Iron and Wine mixed with like a streak of noisy guitars, just like kind of swirled into the mix. There are these really big swings in intensity across the track. It goes from really quiet and melancholic to explosive and well, all teeth. So it makes it a very interesting and again dynamic listen for that regard. A very short EP, but it's one of those that every once in a while I'll run across these like little short releases, kind of something first from an artist, and just like it's like I've got Большой Добрый Пёс flagged now, so in the future something comes out from him, I will be quick to check it out because I really like this specific sound. I'm probably just gonna let this track play as the example. Right, kind of it picks up a little bit. Indie folk meets Midwest emo. It's a pretty solid description there. It was like the twang in the guitars. yeah, I'm just gonna skip ahead a little bit. Yeah, right, like these slow build, then the bottom drops out, and then it goes back to this like really stark, fragile, delicate, sort of vulnerable, I guess is the word I'm looking for. You know, just single acoustic guitar type of thing. The other two tracks are basically like that. It's that similar sound. It's that general formula too, but it's done really, really well. And I don't know, really enjoyed this short EP. And it's one of those, like I said, it's the first thing I've ever seen from this artist, and that probably makes sense because there are just a few other singles, like actual standalone singles aside from this. So hopefully in the future there'll be more, because based on the strength of these 3 songs, it's a good sound. It's not like a new sound or anything, but it's also one of those things where it's not a sound that has been done to death, especially on the Russian music scene. So that is the EP "Я пёс" by the artist Большой Добрый Пёс. Really good, really nice. Moving from that indie folk meets Midwest emo, this is an indie singer-songwriter. This is Иван Черных. This mini album is "БУДУЩИЕ ЦВЕТЫ," or Future Flowers. This is an indie singer-songwriter, which also reminded me a little bit of Iron and Wine. Now, granted, there's probably a better comparison that could be drawn, but I just was not going to be bothered to dig through my iTunes to refresh my memory. Vocally, he brings a bit of the Russian bardic style to the music when he's singing, and also just a little bit in the arrangement. But traditionally, the focus in like the Russian bardic style is on lyricism and depth of thought, which is definitely still here on this album. But the musicality of the tracks is key here. I'm going to start with Brodsky. Also, important to note, Iván Черных says he has 400 songs that he has recorded, but the last time he released an album was 6 years ago. So I don't know if this guy's a perfectionist or he just records stuff and then never gets around to mastering and releasing it, but hopefully he'll be putting out stuff a little bit sooner than in 6 years.
Шлопский, как Бродский, пил, космически тупил.
Howdy, Grotesque. Thanks for tuning in. Just really nice indie folk sound, though. That again, not to say that it doesn't get done here, but it's just done really well. I guess maybe that's the thing. Is like Iván Черных here does it very well. Well, Grotesque, timing is everything. I guess I've missed the Kanye West thing. Are we talking about London or
случае мои права.
I kind of stopped paying attention to Kanye for the most part, musically speaking, like a while ago. When Life of Pablo was what, like a decade ago, so.
Ты наливаешь за мой счет, в лексиконе лишь еще. Бугуль, мы теперь фонтан. Я застрахован от всех благ, вечный гость программы «Смак». Очень рад попасть в капкан.
So anyway, yeah, you get the general idea. Really nice indie folk, really solid stuff. Just a pleasant album all the way around, and it's just like got a nice, again, musicality. All of the there's a lot of thought put into every sound that's here, and it all just creates a very nice picture. A bit like a flower garden, which I guess is appropriate, you know, given the album title. So this is the album БУДУЩИЕ ЦВЕТЫ, and the artist is Иван Черных. Also really good album artwork for the sound too. Really good stuff. Grotesque's talking about how Kanye West used AI to do a collab with an older Russian group, or like an older Russian song. I saw that. I thought it was a joke, so I didn't even bother to click on it. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. Kanye's just kind of doing his own thing. He does. I feel like he would like to come and do a concert here, but they're never going to let him do a concert here now, at least anytime soon. So yeah, I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I don't spend hardly any time thinking about Kanye. I heard one of the songs off of his last album, and it was pretty good. It was the music video one where he's like sitting in the church, and it had moments of old Kanye type of energy, but yeah. Anyway, Kanye's gonna do his thing. This is the opposite end of the spectrum, although honestly, who knows with Kanye anymore, but it's definitely the opposite end of the spectrum in a lot of ways from what we were just listening to. This is the album To Wither to Become. Even with an album title like that, you probably know what we're in for by the group Grotesque and Grandeur. So yeah, with the album title and the artist name, you definitely know what we're in for. Atmospheric post-black metal has with a very strong sense of melody. There's a definite strong wall of noise approach with the riffing and the blast beats and the tremolos, but the thing that's kind of special about this album, and in general a lot of the atmospheric post-black, is that there are sections and melodies that you can actually kind of remember and hum along to, right? Which is not super typical of the black metal genre. I guess if you're got your face paint on and you're feeling in a chipper sort of mood. It's interesting because post-black does feel like it's kind of taking the favored position among the Russian metal community, I should say. Obviously, I feel like black metal was king, or has been king here in a lot of ways, at least on the underground scene for a very long time. But post-black, over the last year or two, I've been seeing more and more groups. I've even mentioned a few of them, like Berista, not long ago I talked about. I think it makes sense because there is a lot of fixation in the music community nowadays on sounds like shoegaze. So post-black metal does fit that overall sound as well. Let me just go ahead and play a little bit of this. Either way, this release has got a fair amount of intensity, but also a lot of space and atmosphere, kind of like some slow burning sections, quieter post-rock moments, give it a little bit of beauty. Got female vocals in the mix as well, kind of catch you off guard at various points, but it's post-black. But it's a good album if you like post-black, or you can perhaps deal with post-black. Maybe that's another way of putting it too. The back and forth, especially on the longer tracks like this one, I don't know, it's nice. It's a nice balance. It makes these sections hit harder. Obviously, just like basic kind of, I guess you would say, music theory in some sense, but like it makes these sections sound heavier, and then the lighter sections are kind of a surprise when they do come. But it's just nice because I feel like a lot of times too, not to say that it's super common, but it does feel like with a lot of black metal, obviously, but also with post-black, it's just kind of, the intensity stays quite high through most of it, whereas this release is not afraid to dial things back, to slow things down, to open things up, and not in a pit sort of way, but like in just a general dial things back on the like the instrumentation front. So there's not really too much. It's post black metal. It's atmospheric post black metal if we want to get even more sub genre type specific. But it's good. It's heavy. It's got rhythm. It's got melody. It has loud sections, it has quiet sections. It's just a dynamic release as well. I've used that word multiple times, but I'm going with it. That's the one I'm sticking with this evening. So that is the album To Wither, To Become, and the group is Grotesque and Grandeur. Album artwork, a little too odd, but I guess whatever, it works. Anyway, that's it. We're past the heavy stuff. We're now kind of in this is not necessarily for everybody, but I do think this is not heavy, so it's not going to necessarily scare people away. I talked a little bit earlier about NDORFIK, the EP, and I mentioned a Tech Ray or Aphex Twin, Square Pusher. This is similar to that. It's not on that level. It's a lot more accessible than that, but this is a difficult work, I guess. It challenges you in its depth because there is a lot going on here. It's IDM largely, but at times there is just a bit of a electronic. There are some tracks that are just kind of electronic. We got a lot of irregular rhythms that skip around like your pulse after 4 or 5 hour energies and a pack of Marlboro Reds. Let me go ahead and throw some of this on. Got a lot of glitched out notes that could irritate, but they've been reassembled, you know, like a tanagram, right? When you have a bunch of broken, disjointed pieces, but they can get put back together into a new shape, because that's what tanagrams are, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. This album, I was reading a little bit about it too. This album was recorded with modular synths, and if you don't know, modular synths are the things where like you like got all the wires running from one module to the next. It looks like a mad scientist sound lab. And like you could imagine a really chaotic setup leading to music like this. It visually makes sense. Yeah, modular synth, the album. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Oh, yeah, the album is Anne, and the artist is Man as Island. So, yeah, Gorozu, you are right. You can run the modules on PC, but the artist Man as Island, he actually, he was talking with people in the electronic music community and talking about how he had never actually worked with actual real modular synths and things like that, and how there was just so much tech and he just like didn't know where to start with it. And another electronic artist who I've talked about, who I really enjoy, Underdog, he just straight up gave this guy a box of module synths, just like play with these, right? Like basically gave him a loadout and just was like, sit around, play with this, and knock yourself out. And this was basically what he came up with as a result. This isn't 100% modular synths, but it is by and large modular synths. And I do like these chaotic beats and glitchy sounds, and again, like this idea of weird things coming together, and like some guy like plugging a bunch of cables into different things, and like this being the output. It feels planned, but also somehow like things are getting corrupted and signals are getting mixed. Yeah. I don't think you got to keep the modular synths, but I do think it was just one of those things where gave him a little bit of some stuff to work with. But there definitely are tracks that are a little bit like more dialed back and more like, again, just kind of like electronic. There is a second disc here too, which is very heavy on the sort of piano end of things, although I don't think it's like a real piano. I think it is, again, a computerized one. But I mentioned Underdog here. Underdog is the guy who gave Man as Island the synths, and he got to do a remix. And Morach is another electronic producer. These are actually, the three remixes are from like pretty solid electronic producers here on the Russian scene as well. So no, I don't. I mean, I was in orchestra back in school. I've followed the music scenes for super long and kind of absorbed a lot of the vocabulary and knowledge of just having friends who are musicians, having been closely involved to some degree on even like concerts and stuff like that. Obviously not doing any sound design or stuff like that, but just like working behind the scenes. And yeah. Anyway, it's a weird album. So I mentioned NDORFIK. I featured NDORFIK at the beginning, and NDORFIK definitely, like I said, cold, calculated, chaotic. This is also chaotic, but it's not as cold and calculated. This is more, I mean, it's analog, right? Like it's like real things. It's not done on a computer. This is the result of, it's as organic as electronic music can get. And again, remixes, which I'm featuring one right here, the remixes are solid all the way around. So it says it's a double album or a 2-disc album. It really just feels like it's one album with a couple of remixes at the end, but there is the kind of piano-y track as well. Very fun, very interesting, chaotic, but chaotic in the way that like a vine wraps itself around like anything and everything and finds it spreads out into every nook and cranny, right? Like it's chaos, but it's also logical in its own way. So this is the album Anne from the artist Man as Island. Nice album artwork too. Pretty simple, but it works. Just enough distortion in it to kind of get your eye. Okay. Now, got two left. This next one is Bananafish. The album is VIV-ILI-III. Is how I'm going to pronounce that. St. Petersburg group. They describe themselves as dream pop. Maybe it was in the past, but honestly, this album feels like it's got a lot more drive and rhythm to the sound. And it's kind of interesting because that was my first impression, right? That's the first thing I wrote as I was going through this. But while digging into a little bit more information about the group, I discovered this album is actually a bit of a compilation album. The group put out 3 different albums. Viv, or I don't know, 5-4, I don't know, like it's not Roman numeral, so we'll go with Viv. Ili, it was actually written with Cyrillic letters when they released it the first time, and then 3 was their third album. And all that they did was they took tracks from those albums and then remastered them. So this is like a compilation, a greatest hits, if you will, for a group that doesn't really have greatest hits. But I had never heard of them before, and I had listened to this album way too many times. And honestly, like, it doesn't really matter. I'm sure none of you have heard of this group before. So I'm just going to pretend that this is a new album, and I think that's completely fine. Yeah. Dream pop, you do hear that a bit with dreamy synths and all of that, but I was reminded a lot while listening to this of female-fronted groups like Metronomy, yeah, Paramore, and oddly enough, The Horrors, even though it's not a female-fronted group. And The Horrors don't quite fit, but for some reason, every guy just kept being like, yeah, that kind of reminds me of The Horrors. I don't know. Anyway, it's good. I think Paramore and Metronomy are fair comparisons in some sense, even though, again, there is more of a dream pop element to the overall sound. Oh, yeah. Part of the song's in English, part of the song's in Russian. I don't know, it's just like kind of how it shakes out. It's not really dream pop. It's too... It's like too much drive. I feel like always dream pop's just way looser and floatier. Like, this is a little bit closer to dream pop. But again, I feel like most of the tracks on this are not quite this sound exactly, so. I know it's a simple synth effect, but I really like how it's put to use in this track too. Alternates between the channels too, which is a nice, it's like a simple effect, but it's nice. I want to get to the chorus. Yeah, right. Why did people stop mixing things in stereo? It's such a does like. I mean, I kind of understand. It's probably connected to the fact that so many people are idiots and just play music on their like shitty tinny telephone speakers or like out of their laptop speakers. It sound like it's a tin can. But it's so funny because I remember as a kid, right, it was like surround sound systems got bigger, right? 5.1, 7.1. It's just like the more speakers you can cram into the room, the better. And like they started to mix albums. They started to mix albums to like, I remember there being a, god damn, what was it? There was a metal group that like specifically mixed their entire album to fit in like 7 or 9 channel stereo system. Like everything was like the drums all came from different things. It was like you're surrounded, and now it's just like, yeah, it's just a very flat sound. Anyway, yeah, phones do have stereo speakers, but it doesn't mean that they sound good. I guess that's the other thing too. It is stereo, but it's still coming out of like a tiny speaker, usually sitting down on a flat surface, which I get it. They've engineered phone speakers to be better, but yeah, ultimately it is still just kind of a lost thing. Anyway, this album here, VIV-ILI-III, by the group Bananafish out of St. Petersburg. It's nice. It's got, like, again, those 2 tracks, Lodestar and Zabuvio, that I just sort of played. I didn't actually intend to play Zabuvio in its entirety, but I got sidetracked with remembering 5.1 surround sound. It's got that general energy throughout the entire album. It's a nice one. Again, I don't know Metronome, Paramore, The Horrors. I can't say exactly why I was reminded of those groups, but there are things on this album that reminded me of various aspects of each of those groups. And I like all of those groups, or I enjoy their music, so I guess if I enjoy it, that counts as me liking it. So yeah, it's a nice album. It's a nice album. I had a good time with it. This is one of those that I've been sitting on. It's from February. So anyway, let's talk about the final album here. This is kind of the big one that came out this, well, I guess it was this last week. Yeah, well, not exactly this last week, but anyway, whatever. It came out on the 3rd of April. It's an April release. This is the album Multiplicatio. Oh, Jesus, yo-my-yo. Multiplicatio. There we go. It's a fucking ridiculous. Multiplicatio by the group neeet. You have to say it like that too. Neeet. It does look like a drugs out of 10 album. That is it's an astute one. You can actually see Multiplicatio on there. Yeah, I know, but like, come on. I can do it. I know I can do it. I did do it. But anyway, this is not a drug album at all. There's actually a lot of stuff written about this album. Most of it was talking, and a lot of the praise is warranted. It is. It's the last one I'm talking about this week. Very fresh sounding, especially on the Russian scene. It's kind of like this hip hop jazz with funk, and they use a lot of rhythms from like Latin America and Africa. Even some of the less funky, less dancey tracks, like the interlude and Elephant, they all fit within the context of the album. What I will disagree with, I saw a lot of people just like, this is such a deep album, there's so much to unpack here, there's layers upon layers, you don't begin to understand it until the fifth listen. It's like, no, like, you're a dumbass. You can understand this album 100% all the way through upon the first listen. There are little bells and whistles, kind of like, there is layering. I don't want to pretend like this is just like a very simple, a 4-track production type of thing. Like, there is other stuff going on, but that's not like, this isn't one of those albums where like you have to listen to it multiple times to really appreciate it. Hell no. That is the dumbest take I saw come up again and again. I think it's one of those things where it's like a lot of music journalists, I don't know, like want to sound super smart. It's just like, this is just a goddamn fun album. Let me just go ahead and play it. Like that G-funk. Is there stuff? Are there like layers? Are there things going in the background? Yeah, but like, you don't need to listen to this 5 times to be completely clear of what you're getting. This is probably, in my opinion, like one of those albums that just feels like it's designed for spring weather. Warm, sunny, right? When you're just like, after the long winter, just ready to like walk or cruise or like be on a bike or, God forbid, an electric scooter, a car, right? She's just out. You're just enjoying spring. So we get that like heavy funk music. Like, it's kind of all over the place, but it's all within that funky, dancey, jazzy wheelhouse. So even though it does switch up from track to track, it is never a shock. It's just like, okay, yeah, now we're doing this now. Like, yeah, is there a lot going on here? Yeah. Do you need to like listen to this 5 times to understand the overall idea? It's just fun. It's just fun music, and that's okay. It's funky, it's fun, kind of makes you want to dance, wants to make you move around. Like, the one description I did see one music blogger actually hit was, like, this is the type of music that, because it is springtime, you might find yourself walking along and realize you've actually walked 3 additional bus stops than you need to, just because the music is so good, it's so catchy, and when the weather is warm and sunny, you're in just such a good mood that you just don't even notice. You're just moving with it. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of the late 80s, 90s, but here we have a little bit of some bossa nova, right? So, oh, right, scrolling in the wrong direction. Like, there definitely are some weird tracks. The interlude is just it's kind of bizarre, but like it fits. The other thing I think that's kind of important to mention, it's a duo out of Dagestan, which I don't know, kind of cool. One of the I don't, this has nothing to do with just like a personal story, but one of the first people from Russia I met, one of the like language assistants at my university, Abdurrahman, was from Dagestan, and he played funk guitar and was like in a funk band when he was working as the language assistant. And then I think he's not in Russia anymore, but after he moved back to Russia, after he was finished as the language assistant, he joined like a kind of a funk band as well. So anyway, it was funny. Like, this is from Dagestan, and I was like, oh shit, Rock. Yeah, Rock used to play in a funk band kind of too. Like, is that just something that's going on in Dagestan that I just don't know about, or just coincidence? So, yeah. Is this super, super complicated music? No. It's a mix of a bunch of different genres. Yeah, late 80s into the 90s, a little bit of some 70s. We got some bossa nova. We got the funk. We got, I don't know, just like anything and everything that has a good groove and rhythm to it. But like, also, they didn't announce this album in advance. They just straight up dropped it out of the blue. That was it. They teased, like, they put 5 posts on their Telegram channel, which is normally kind of dead, so their fans kind of knew maybe something was going to happen, but they didn't even announce that they were recording anything. So this just came literally out of left field for everyone. And yeah, this is just a great album for spring and summer, realistically too. It just got like warm, positive energy, and it's the stuff that you want to move around to. So that is the album Mультипликатио. Jesus, I don't know. It's just like I look at it, and it's, you know what it is? It's the iplica. Like, when I look at it, just my eyes smash everything together, and Mультипликатио, by the group neeet. So that's that. 12 releases this week. It was going to be 10, and then I was like, I have to do the two the two Bandcamp releases, because I'd been kind of sitting on them for a while, and especially with like the День Космонавтики, I was like, if I don't do it this year, I'm going to like be very upset with myself. So anyway, Multi-il-patio. Yeah, there you go. That's another way of looking at it. That's actually kind of a fun variation of it. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have anything smart or anything special to talk about. I didn't. Gораздо here mentioned Kanye. I saw something about that. I guess I was kind of paying attention to Coachella. I watched a little bit, at least what was shared online, of the 9 Inch Noise, which was 9 Inch Nails and Boys Noise together. Good to see Trent Reznor still basically outperforming everyone else at 60 years of age. So that was solid. But yeah, it's just been kind of me. What I will say, I spent a lot of time this last week. So there were 12 albums here. Some of them I had listened to a little bit before, and I also listened to a few albums that, again, as usual, they just didn't make it into the stream. But I probably listened to like 20 albums that I just like yeeted right out of the playlist. Just one of those situations where, because it's like, obviously this is the second week in April, but last week I didn't really talk about much April music. So this week I was like, all right, I'm gonna go through it. And I actually have kind of kept up with the April releases for the most part. I'll think about it. I don't really want to give Kanye any more than he needs right now. He's doing all right for himself, but I think the thing too with like Lascivo Mai is also kind of a little bit before my time here too, so it's not one of those things where I can be like, oh damn, that's like a really good cover, or like, oh, that's a really shit cover, or because like Lascivo Mai, like, let's be real, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I had grown up here, then yeah, it would have been. But by the time I got over here, maybe I'll talk about it next stream. That's what I'll do. I'll save the Kanye Lascivo Mai for next stream. So maybe they do. I have no idea. I have no idea what they're doing in Poland, but anyway, yeah, so I listened to a lot of garbage this week, I guess is what it is. But I don't know, like, I'm still, the Niet, the Что album at the very end, really good, really fun, but I'm still waiting for some sort of album to just completely floor me. There have been some good ones, but I don't know, it feels like last year. I don't know. Maybe 2026 is just going to be kind of a slow year for music, where it's like the industry's just churning along, but we don't get any like stone cold classics. Or who knows? Maybe tomorrow 3 of them will drop. I don't know. I do know that I have quite a bit of rap to listen to, so wish me luck with that. Actually, it's like artists who are pretty solid, so it won't be too bad. I'm just being dramatic. But anyway, I'm going to finish it up. We've had super fantastic weather, and I mean that 100% sarcastically, for like the last few weeks here. And supposedly tomorrow's supposed to be a nice, relatively warm and sunny day. So I'm going to try to get out and film the first of the Metro Roulette. I'm going to try to get out to Krasnoselskaya, and I'm going to be completely real. There's no way in hell I'm going to film everything I want to in a single day, but I feel like if I can get out there and do at least half of it, then it'll probably be way too much even for like 2 videos. Anyway, I gotta finish getting my notes ready for tomorrow so I remember where the hell I'm supposed to go, what I'm gonna look at, and then I need to go to bed so I can get my sleep so that I'm all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed in the morning when I jump into the metro with everyone else as a commuter. So, yeah, I appreciate the offer, Grotesque. I hope, I'm assuming you're searching for a job, so I hope the job search goes well in the near future. Something good. I don't know. Anyway, everyone, have a good evening or good afternoon. Yeah, I'll be back Sunday evening as usual, Wednesday evening as usual, and a week from today as usual. But y'all take care of yourselves. I will see you the next time I see you, and until then,